Hey everybody, welcome to OCtech. My name is Jimmie Johnson. I'm the welding program coordinator and instructor here in the welding program. This is Larry Osborne, my associate and also instructor here.
How you doing?
Larry adds a unique element to here because he's graduated with our associate program in industrial maintenance welding. So he has a perspective as a student, and now as an instructor he sees things from that point of view. So he's going to be very useful to us in that regard, and he can answer questions as a student that maybe I can't. So he's going to be valuable to us, and if you have any questions, then you can contact Larry about those. He's also a veteran, so he's came at it from having veterans benefits and things like that, so he can be very helpful to you as a veteran if you have questions about how the benefits would apply to the program. And we get a lot of questions about the welding program that are very general. Maybe they can answer some of your questions. Things like, do I need to have experience to be in the welding program? No, you don't. You can come into our welding program and have experience, and we have different programs for the beginner versus somebody who has skill and experience, in the trade, out working day to day. So if you were to come in as a new student with no experience, we put you in maybe the basic welding certificate, which would mean you're going to come in and get an introductory, lesson as to how this works and what goes on, safety and basic things like that. If you came in as an experienced student or experienced welder, we could put you in the intermediate program or even begin with the associate's program and work with you based on your experience level. But we're here to provide you with enough skill and proficiency so that your skills are marketable in the workplace. And my average welder is making about $24 an hour. The average graduate we put out is marketable in the workplace, making about $24 an hour. My best students are making about $37 an hour. And some of the lesser, skilled and maybe not as experienced are making maybe about $14. So that kind of gives you a range of the kind of, student we're producing here. But we're going to train you at 960 contact hours or training hours, and that doesn't compare to, say, a professional union apprenticeship at 6,000 hours, for an example, with the Boilermakers. Or, Larry, what was the other hours you gave me for the other union you were talking about?
4,000 hours.
4,000 hours. So we're competing with those kinds of apprenticeship programs, but we only have 960 training hours to train you. So we're going to be very focused and very disciplined about what we do here. And if you come in without experience, you're probably a better student than somebody who comes in with experience, because the guy that comes in with, or the girl that comes in with experience usually has bad habits, and trying to undoing those bad habits can take time. So coming in without experience is a good thing, in my experience anyway. How many hours are you going to be here? Well, if you're a typical student, you're going to be in class for 4 hours a day, 2 days a week for one class, but typically we take 2 classes at a time and no more than that. So if you're a typical student, you're going to take 2 classes, 2 welding classes, and you'll be here for 4 hours per day, 4 days a week. You meet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There are no classes on Friday here at OCtech. But if you do that, you're going to be committed to 960 training hours if you want to market your skills at $24 an hour. And that means you're going to be here for 5 semesters: fall, spring, summer, and fall, spring. And that's a big commitment. It's going to be an extensive bit of training, but we're only giving you 960 training hours compared to 6,000 in the Boilermakers apprenticeship program. So we've got to come out here and we've got to work hard to get you where you're going to go. So when you come out to class, you're going to spend maybe 25% of your time in the classroom setting, learning different technical things that you're going to need to learn. And then we're going to spend 75% of our time out in the lab actually doing hands-on work. Most students who come to my program are very hands-on learners. They like to see what they're trying to learn, not be told what they're doing. So we're hands-on instructors, and we're going to show you how to do the work, and then you're going to do it. So you're going to have a lot of time practicing what we're going to teach you in terms of your welding performance and your progression toward simple stuff to more complex stuff. And how far you go in that process is really up to you in terms of your motivation, your work ethic, and how well you're listening to what you're being taught and how well you apply what you're being taught in the lab. So what are we going to do with you as you come into the class? We're going to expect a lot out of you in terms of your attendance, in terms of your work ethic, and in terms of housekeeping issues that we're going to apply here. For an example, a lot of students don't like the fact that you can't come to my program and bring your phone with you. But that's how you're going to have to deal with it in the workplace, because nobody lets you bring a phone in the workplace anymore, especially at a high level where security might be an issue in a nuclear power plant or in a shipbuilding place where they're building nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and destroyers, things like that. So a lot of students don't want to come into my program and leave their phone behind, but you're going to have to learn how to do that. We expect you to come into the program as if you're in the workplace in all those categories that are going to apply in the workplace: safety, housekeeping, work ethic, things like that. So it's going to be a diligent program. You're going to have to be dedicated to it, and it's not for the faint of heart. We're not out here to socialize and play games. We're out here to actually train to compete with some welders at a very high level to make the kind of money that we want to make a decent living out of this. Now, it's going to require you to come out with some minimal things such as safety equipment. Larry's going to show you some of the minimum safety equipment you would be required to have out here. Now, if you come out here with nothing, it's going to cost you about $200 to have this equipment. So, Larry, go ahead and tell us what we got to have when we come out here for safety.
The first thing we're going to need safety glasses. Always in the lab, every time we go to the lab, step through the doors, you have safety glasses on. They stay on all the time. Eyes is the most important part of this job. Hearing protection, sparks flying around, you don't want them going into your ear canal. We run grinders, we're beating and banging, you don't want to mess your hearing. Steel toe boots, protect those feet from the metal that we're using and don't want to drop them on your feet. Leather gloves, we have a welding cap to protect your the scalp, and a welding shield. We also have other safety equipment such as the safety jacket to cover your jeans. Everything's 100% cotton out here. No polyester blends, or no. It's got to be wool or it's got to be 100% cotton. Anything else tends to light up a lot quicker. And the polyester and those nylon blends, they melt like a candle. They don't actually burn, they actually melt. So they cause more of a problem to or more safety hazard. And we are strenuous about safety because when you go to your job, you actually have safety meetings at least once a month covering various things. And on the safety on your job site, they stress safety because they're liable for you on the job site. And if they're going across telling you each and every week or month, whatever the meetings have, that you have different safety procedures you have to go through. So safety first. Like I said, most of it you can get from the bookstore. If you have your FASTFOR Pell Grants, you can purchase most of this from the bookstore, so it won't be out of pocket. Your boots are going to be about half of that price. A good pair of boots is going to be about $100. But this is the safety equipment that you need to be able to come out here and perform your daily activities.
In some cases, your financial aid might help you with some of that equipment, but that's getting harder to come by than it was in the past. But in some instances, even if you don't get equipment money, you can get money for book allowances based on what kind of financial aid package you get. And that'll be determined by the financial aid people when you come and apply. So when you come and they put you through the paces of the financial aid, they'll let you know what your financial aid is going to allow for in terms of equipment or possibly book allowance. But if you're in a welding program, it depends on what program you're in, whether you're going to need all these textbooks for the welding aspect alone. This set of textbooks right here is going to cost you about $550, and that's going to be necessary for you in an associate's program. But if you're in the basic welding program, you won't need everything here. You might need just 2 textbooks, maybe $200. It really depends on the program you're in. If you're in the basic welding program, you'll probably only need 2 texts. If you're in the intermediate, you might need 3. If you're in the fundamental, you might need 2. But in the associates, you're going to need all of them. We have a basic welding program that's a basic certificate, an intermediate program, which is a certificate program, and we have the fundamental certificate program. And that makes 3 certificate programs you can get here. Most students are going to take the basic and intermediate to accumulate that 960 training hours that I've talked about. In the associate's program, you're going to take all the courses that would be required in the basic and intermediate, and you need all these texts. So you can be an associate student in industrial maintenance and welding like Larry was, and you can graduate with not only the welding skills, but also your general education skills and other industrial maintenance courses that aren't necessary to the basic or the intermediate program. So it kind of depends on what flavor you want to have when you come out here. And we can work that out based on your experience, where you want to be in the end, and that kind of stuff. Now, the end product, what we're trying to produce is a professional welder who can make a decent living in the welding trade. And we've got associations with different companies locally, and we've got some that are outside the state, such as the one we're working with now, Ingalls Shipbuilding. We're very desirous to get our students because we produce a high caliber student, and they can work with them because what we're training them to do is compatible with what they're doing, building aircraft carriers and destroyers and such things for the Navy up in Newport News, Virginia, down in Mississippi, and a few other locations. They're starting their apprenticeships out at 17 and change and capping their apprenticeship program out at $23.40. Once you graduate apprenticeship program, you're going to start with $28 and change. Making overtime in a place like that, it'll be easy for you to make $60,000 to $80,000 a year for a company like that. but it's a high-end company and they require a lot from you. That's why we require a lot from you in the program. So you can attain to that right out of school if you have the capabilities and the motivation and the drive here when you're with us. So it's possible for you to get to that level, but 2 years of commitment is what it's going to take. And you've got to be able to perform at the level that they're going to require. And I've laid out some things that would help you kind of get a visual on what that would require in terms of skill. We start out with basic, simple kinds of welding, such as you see here, where it's a flat piece of plate. You're going to put welding beads in this and fill it up so that it's well done and controlled and so on. Once you move past that skill, you're going to move to a more difficult skill, such as this weld here, 2F welding, where you've got gravity pulling against the liquid metal. Requires a different technique, different skill set. Here we've got a 3F weld, where you're going to weld from the bottom to the top. That liquid metal is really going to be affected by gravity, and your performance, your skill has to be even better. So as we progress through the program, each of these coupons represents a better and more stringent capabilities, to the degree that we're going to give you what is going to be required of you for what we call a gateway test. This right here represents what we call a 3G vertical weld. 3G being vertical groove weld, and most companies are going to require you to do a 3G weld test, such as what I'm holding in my hand, and a 4G test, which is overhead groove welding like I'm holding it in my hand. So if you can't do a 3G and a 4G weld test to get in the door, then you're probably not even going to be considered. So we've got to convince whoever you're trying to get employment with that you can do these tests, because you've proved it and you've got the credentials to prove it. And I can vouch for that and say, this person's worthy of a consideration. And typically companies are spending about $150 a test for these. They're not going to spend $300 on somebody who doesn't have the ability. So we've got to work you up to the point where you can convince whoever that you can do this test and it's worth looking at you spending the time and money to get you to that degree. Now, Ingalls is one company that's going to test our students coming in March, and they're going to test them in a 3G coupon just to see how well they can do that job. And if they can do it and pass the visual test that they're going to require, they have an open door to working for Ingalls and getting in their apprenticeship program. That's a pretty sweet deal. And we've trained our students to the point where that's a pretty simple task for them. And we're not going to give you a smorgasbord approach to welding like some tech schools. They give you 2 weeks of one process, 2 weeks of another, and you get a little bit of everything, but you never master anything. We're going to give you the skills in the most widely used process, which is shielded metal arc welding, stick welding. And you're going to go from rudimentary to more proficient step at a time. And we're not going to bump you ahead until you master each step. So no matter where you leave in 2 years with me or 1 year, whatever the case may be, you will be proficient at that skill. And in stick welding, 43% of all welding is done by stick welding. So you've got to be proficient at that if you expect to be employed by anyone. Once you master that skill, we'll move you on to gas metal arc welding and flux core arc welding. Between all those three, you're going to have 78% capabilities in all the welding being done in the world. So we kind of look at it different than some tech schools where you have a lot of little. We give you a really focused training so that you're proficient at whatever you're going to do, and especially the processes that are marketable. A lot of people want to come in here and do this exotic aluminum welding and whatever. Aluminum welding may apply for certain kinds of jobs, but if you train to be an aluminum welder and you can't do the carbon steel stick welding that we're teaching you, you're a great aluminum welder, but who's going to hire you who needs you to be a carbon steel welder? So I think you see the reasoning behind that. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a tour of the lab, which you're going to spend a lot of time in. We're going to take kind of a panoramic view around. You'll see what the lab looks like and see some of the equipment out there. We're also going to go into a booth that is not occupied by anybody at this time, so you can see the workspace that you're going to spend many hours in. And then we're going to take a look at a student who's actually doing some welding, and you'll see kind of what that's all about, and you'll see some light flashing and whatever. You won't necessarily see what is actually going on, but you'll get an idea of, sort of what students are doing day to day out here, okay? So let's go out there and check things out and see what that's all about. Students see, right? So just film that, get an idea of what we're doing. We'll get a shot at it. Okay, so we've given you a general overview of what it takes to be a welding student, what we do in the welding lab, what we do in the classroom. If you have any more information, then the contact information is below. If you want to contact me or contact Larry as a veteran, former student, do so. We'll answer any questions you have and maybe set up a time frame where you can come and actually see us and actually visit the lab yourself and see for yourself what we're doing out here. Okay? Thanks a lot. Hope to see you soon.